Ron Naclerio, welcome to the show. How's your summer? How are things?
Well, it's great to see the weather starting to get a little cool at night because the air conditioning on, the air conditioning off. I've been catching some colds, and you could probably hear it in my mouth or in my nose. So, but hey, listen, it's part of life.
It's part of life for sure. 50 years of high school coaching.
Well, if I pass away in the next 10 minutes, I might on my plot say LS, lifetime schmuck, because
so,
50 years and starting 51 when I start in the fall, it'll be 45 head, 6 assistant when I start in the fall.
all right. So, if you've seen a lot of generations of high school basketball, do you believe every generation of high school players get better?
I think the talented players are very talented and do get better. Like when I was younger, I was very good in baseball. I was all city, all Northeast for St. John's, led the nation in stolen bases, got drafted by the Chicago White Sox. And I faced pitchers, Bob Welsh, Steve Bedrosian, guys that threw 96, 98. But then I also saw face guys that threw 88, 90, 92. Now it seems like everybody throws 95, 98. So there's more of them. Uh, like in basketball, the guys seem to jump higher, shoot with more range, dribble with skip to my little handles or Kyrie Irving handles. But overall, I don't think the game is better. I think, what's weird. When I started coaching and when I was playing as a junior high school kid at Cardozo, uh, college player at St. John's, JV, junior varsity, and sub varsity, there was no shot clock. There was no 3-point line. The shot clock is good for the game because to see somebody just hold the ball and work it around for an hour and a half to take a layup, I think that's not what James Naismith meant when he invented the game. But just to come down and throw up Hail Marys, I mean, that's ridiculous. I mean, if Shaquille O'Neal was coming out of LSU right now, he probably wouldn't be the first pick in the draft because he can't shoot really more than 3, 4, 5 feet from the basket, and he's an abysmal 3-point shooter. If he ever was forced to take him, so it's amazing how the game has changed.
What's the golden era of high school basketball talent, in your opinion?
You know, the word high school talent in New York City now, unfortunately, is kids going to prep school and it become prep school talent.
Mm,
When you see the national rankings, and I argue with Paul Biancardi from ESPN, you see some of these Monteverdes and these other schools that are prep schools. You know, uh, they can give out I-20s. They can put kids up in the dorm like it's a hotel. To me, a high school is you get up, your mother or father drive you a couple of miles, or you walk to school, you get on a bus, maybe take a subway, like you're going to a Christ the King or a Cardinal Hayes or a Lincoln or a Jefferson or a Cardozo, to get in a car or drive hours upon hours or fly. That's not high school basketball to me. That's prep school. Prep school basketball is great, but I believe high school basketball in New York City is still what the kids want.
it's been like this for a while, though. I mean, prep school goes back all the way to, the 90s, early 2000s.
Well, what has happened is that a lot of coaches have taken their prep schools to levels that weren't seen in the 80s and 90s. There was Malta Wilson, Virginia, Oak Hill, Stephen Smith, and he got some great kids from New York that were kind of troubled
Hmm.
or had to had to find a way to get 80s and 90s because when they were in their high school, they got 65s and 70s or failed. Rod Strickland, Lloyd Daniels.
Yeah.
Uh, but now they're all over. And it's amazing how I see these guys. All of a sudden, they just open up a prep school. Like, how do you get state accreditation? I mean, just because you say you're a basketball program? I believe that when Kofi Cockburn and Cole Anthony were at Christ the King and Malloy, respectively, and they played on ESPN live on a Friday night, and you couldn't get into Christ the King, I think that experience is something they'll never forget. And it was like, to them, the ultimate championship game, even though it was just a regular league game. When they ended up going to their prep schools, you know, they played in some big games, maybe at the Hoop Hall and Springfield Hall of Fame. But a lot of their regular games were just in gyms against schools that, because they're in the middle of nowhere, against schools that basically couldn't play a lick. And the the luster that the kids had playing in New York, to some is still there, but
Uh,
some it's not there. You know,
so what you're saying basically is prep school might have the most talent, but maybe not the same amount of character.
well, not character in a negative way. It's just that if you go to a Monteverdi, you go to a Malta Wilson, you have target games that you circle,
Yeah.
and then maybe now if you're lucky enough to get invited to this national championship, that a Christ the King, a Cardozo, a Jefferson, a Cardinal Hayes, really can't compete because,
Yeah.
you know, I might find a good eighth grader and hope he applies and gets into Cardozo, or I might get a decent transfer, but I can't go to Christ the King, take their two best players, Cardinal Hayes, take their two best players, Stepanek, get their best player, go to Lehigh, take their best player, take a kid from Philly, stick him in a hotel. And I can't do that. And I wouldn't want to do that. So I'm still a little old fashioned where, like I said, I'm a high school coach, and I love the prep schools for a lot of kids, but I think a lot of the kids think just because I don't like what's happening now, kids are going to the top high schools and they're using that as a stepping stone to the prep schools instead of going to college.
Mm.
But you know what? Unfortunately, and I have to face the facts, colleges now recruit on a scale of 1 through 4. 1 through 4. One is the portal. 2 is junior college. 3 is prep school because a lot of them are older or reclassified or more finished because they're in their fifth or sixth year. And last is high school.
You were
So,
teaching, yeah. I mean, you mentioned you have an old-fashioned approach, but you were also implementing flair a lot earlier than other coaches.
well, you know what? I believe when you go on the playground, you want to have some fun. Like sometimes
Mm.
you go in the shower and you just start singing and you think you're Pavarotti, or you change your voice and think you're Louis Armstrong, hey, 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 or Fat Albert. Uh, you get on the court and you start doing things that the high school coaches in the 50s, 60s, and 70s would frown upon. And then I was blessed that there was a sixth grader that came to the junior high I taught at and then ended up playing for me that was a kid that had flair. And I showed him so many hot diggity dog moves, the relish, a lot of mustard, bun, and it became Skip to my Lou, Rafer Alston. That's
what do you remember about Skip?
Skip, when I saw him in sixth grade, had a handle that was magical, mystical.
Mm.
And he just kept on taking it to another level, added the flair, the hot dog passes, basically had vision that wasn't seen in those days. I mean, if Rafa, mom, Geraldine, had him 20 years later and he was playing in the NBA now, where I think some coaches would kind of wince but let Rafa be Skip. And I
Mm.
think it would be it would be incredible because the stuff that I've seen him do in real games, not Harlem Globetrotter
Right.
type stuff with the Washington Generals. I mean, I've seen him do stuff where guys legitimately trying to lock him down, legitimately trying to, keep him scoreless, literally trying to strip him or body him up. And the stuff he did was wow. And that's what you saw some of it on the N1 mixtapes.
Yeah. Were you surprised at all when he made the league, taking the route that he did? Obviously, he had the talent, but he had a very unique route, even though he did do JUCO and Fresno State, obviously.
Well, there's a side of Rafer that unfortunately he had inside of him that myself and the assistant coach Billy Medley, along with Mike Bell, may rest in peace. We had to basically stay on Rafer, and whenever he would walk down the street and veered left, the wrong street, we would have to go out of our way to try to grab him. And every time we thought we had him doing the right thing, something came across, and you know, the negative in him came out. But we never gave up on him. We kept on finding a way, whether it was sending him to, Ventura Junior College or Fresno City, and then later with Jerry Tarkanian. I knew he was an NBA player. The
Mm.
biggest fear I had with Rafa was either that the streets would pull him a little too much, or, believe it or not, when Rafa was young, he was very small. He was only like 5'2", 5'4".
Uh,
I thought he might only grow to 5'8", 5'9", 5'10", like a Shaheem Holloway, a good friend of his. But he ended up growing to 6'2" and a quarter. So, size does matter, especially at the point.
he didn't play that many games at Cardozo, right?
Freshman year he played and then got a little ineligible. Sophomore year he was eligible for the whole season, averaged 26 a game.
Wow.
He actually lost a playoff game to Forest Hills, and they had a kid I think scored 28. Rafer had 25. The kid who scored 28 was an all Queens player who late August called me up after his senior year asking me, Coach, can you help me find a school? I go, what do you mean? He had no schools and he was a good player, about 6'3". So I said to him, let's meet and let me see your grades, because I thought he was lying to me about his grades, because why would he not have any schools? Well, I told him I can't promise anything. It was Labor Day weekend. I made a few phone calls Saturday. LIU offered him a scholarship, sight unseen, based on my word. He went to Long Island University, got 11 a game, transferred to Texas, El Paso, and the rest is history. He's now the associate head coach at University of Connecticut, Kamani Young.
Who's the greatest high school player that you have seen with your own two eyes?
Lloyd Daniels. Larry Johnson, the Nick great, said the best play he ever played against, besides Michael Jordan, was Lloyd Daniels. Now, that's no knock on Kenny Anderson, who's right there. Stephon Marbury, who's right there. I mean, that's right there. It's like saying, you know, is $100 more valuable in quarters, dimes, or nickels? They're still $100. But I think because Lloyd had the incredible range on his outside shot, plus Lloyd was close to 6'8", that's why I would have to put him above.
Ron's up there?
Ron's the greatest. I had a lot of fun with Ron. I used to work him out, work on his handle. He used to, have me do all my skip to my little drills.
Oh, okay.
And
Yeah.
what was great was he. There's a Ron that people think he's crazy. He's not crazy.
By the way, his brother
I,
played with me. His brother played with me in JUCO. My guy
yeah,
Daniel. Yeah, yeah.
and people don't realize it. As strong as Ronnie Artest is, Danny might be physically stronger.
Yes.
But I
Yeah.
remember one night, it was funny. Ron started off with a struggling on a shooting. And
Okay.
I used to work with Ron. So he calls me like 1 o'clock in the morning. Coach, I'm going to fly you out to Indiana. I want you to work with me, blah, blah, blah. I said, Ron, I got a game tomorrow with Cardozo. He goes, okay. And he hung up.
Wow.
But he's the best. I mean, Ron, anybody who's coached and been around him knows Ron is tremendous, tremendous.
What people don't like, people think about Lakers, Ron, but what people don't think about, he almost got to an MVP level with the Rockets. Like he was real good at that point. Like,
He did a little of everything, and he was the type of guy. His greatness, you couldn't look because of stats. Because if he needed to score, he would score. If he needed to pass, he would pass. If he needed to guard the
yes,
other team's best player, he would do that. Uh, if he had a rebound, he very smart, very smart. He actually has the ability to be a basketball coach and coach. I know,
he wants to be. He's
yeah,
petitioning. Yeah, he was
yeah,
petitioning for the Knicks job. Yeah.
yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes people look at you a certain way and might not give you that, that the love as a coach that Ron had as a player.
Are today's players less tough than, let's say, the 90s?
Some of them aren't. Some of them are right there, if not tougher. But I definitely believe a lot more of the players today, uh, instead of playing in the NBA, should be working for Mr. Softy, the ice cream truck.
What's the biggest difference in mentality between those two eras? Because it gets talked about a lot on the internet, Ron.
Today with the advent of social media and everybody filming everything, you hit a shot or two, or you make a move or two, and you think you're an accomplished player. It's like a baseball player that hits one home run. You're not Babe Ruth. You're not Aaron Judge with one home run. You hit one home run. A lot of guys hit one home run. To be at the level that we consider, top flight, you got to bring it all the time. And there are kids that I know if they could go back in time 2, 3 years, 4, 5 years, 6, 7, 8 years, 10 years, they would do it a lot different. They would actually go to a drugstore, a CVS, buy some Q-tips, use them to clear their ears out, and listen a lot better. Because a lot of them, they have all the answers, but they don't even know what the questions are.
Did you ever think about taking things to the next level, or it was you just wanted
I
to stay
always,
straight high
I
school?
always, I always dreamed of being the Nick
Oh wow,
coach, or the
I
St.
could
John.
see it. I could see you in a suit coaching the Knicks.
Well, Mike Brown and I became very good friends. We worked together the Adidas ABC camp. We stay in contact. Uh, but I'm at a point right now where I think people look at me, being 68 years old, they might think like I'm a fossil, or that he might never want to leave Cardozo. Uh, I'm hoping maybe Royal Ivy, one of my former players who's been around,
Mm-hmm.
one of the hot assistant coaches. Hopefully he gets a job, and if he does, he says he would ask me to possibly join him. But I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to see him get a head job for 2 years because I have two goals that I believe I must stay and accomplish. I got into the New York State Basketball Hall of Fame last year in April. Getting into the New York City Basketball Hall of Fame February 24th, 2026.
Congrats.
No, thank you. No coach in New York City history, NBA, Knicks and Nets, most Red Holzman, Knicks 613, college D1, D2, D3, JUCO, St. John's, Lou Carnesecca was like an uncle to me. The most wins, 526. The most wins is Jack Curran. Malloy, may he rest in peace, 55 years. He got 972 victories. I'm at 961. And
Oh,
if
so
I
this season.
if I have a typical season, I'm hoping I can get 2025. I'll break Jack Curran and I'll be at the mountaintop. And then if I have 2025, let's say 981, 986, I have to go to become the first to ever get 1,000. And there are people, one or two that have a vote for Springfield, saying if you can get 1,000 wins in New York City public school, you deserve consideration for that. And now that would be something I couldn't fathom. I mean, that would make up for never coaching college at a high level or coaching in the NBA.
Yeah, I think you'll get there if you stay. What? Maybe 2 more years?
2 years, if I do what I'm doing, I have some very good sophomores that are now going to be juniors. So last year was kind of rough. We were 22-7, but we were not a typical Cardozo powerhouse. We had to claw a lot more than we normally did. This year, I'm hoping we can claw a little better, and then next year, I think would be really top flight again. So, I do believe that in a year and a half, I'll be able to get it. If not, by the end of my second year.
What were your thoughts when Tibbs got fired?
I was shocked. My assistant texted me because I go way back with Tibbs. I remember 1984. I'm in a car with Thibodeau and a friend of mine named Arnie Hershkowitz, and we're driving out to Nassau Community College
Okay.
while Tibbs was at Harvard, and he's recruiting Ralph James from Malloy. And we stayed in contact. And
Wait, who was at Harvard?
Ralph James,
Got you.
with,
Okay.
with Malloy, who was recruiting for Harvard.
Got you. Okay.
And then life, you got to be good in politics. He would go to the Albany Patroons, and I forgot,
CBA.
yeah, the
C-
CBA. I
yep.
forgot the guy who became the first coach of the Minnesota Timberwolves asked Tom to join him as an assistant, and you know that was Tom's rabbi, and Tom used his rabbi well and worked his way up to being a head coach in the NBA, and I believe he did a hell of a job. You know?
Yeah, one of my earliest recollections of seeing you, I think, was on a Rucker. It was like some kind of program where you were playing in Rucker. I played in Rucker before. Like, we both have ties to street ball. My question to you is: do you believe being a street ball legend is more of a gift or more of a curse?
Well, it depends what you want. If you want to play, what they call professional basketball, it could be a curse because they look at you as a street ball player as like uncoached, uneducated basketball wise. It's almost like a dropout from school. It's like, yeah, a GED in street ball is not the same thing as getting a college degree in regular basketball because they don't think that there is the discipline. Like Rafer had to separate Rafer Alston and skip to my Lou. And if Rafer was not wise enough, which he was, to try to be skip to my Lou, he would have been skipping out of town and in the G League or in no league.
It's interesting because I believe some people that fall into the mold of street ball legend fall in love with like adoration more than doing what's best for them, maybe financially.
Well, you know what? When street ball was around in the 80s, 90s with Rafer and myself, it wasn't that easy to make money. The first time a street baller could make money was the N1 tour.
Right. Right.
And they made decent money, but they didn't make ridiculous money. Now you can find a way of making money. It's different, but it's still not the money that you're going to generate from being a top level professional, either overseas or in the NBA, or
Who's the most
even a top flight kid in college in the portal can make now.
Who's the most underrated New York City basketball player you ever saw?
A lot of them, a lot of them, a lot of them, a lot of them. Mark Jackson was one. Uh, I had one named Daryl Showtime Hill.
I remember that. Yeah.
Uh, uh, so many. Now, when you say underrated, is it underrated when he got to the league? Underrated as far as not making the league?
Doesn't get the kudos he deserves.
Well, street ball wise, he does, but unfortunately, he never played in the NBA. The best kept secret, Kareem Reed. I mean,
Yes.
there were so many great players. I mean, I had a kid named James Sutherland who I thought should have been an 8, 10, 12 NBA player and a rotational player coming off the bench like a Kyle Korver. But unfortunately, Tim Gergovich, who was a great assistant coach in the league for years, said sometimes it's just a numbers game, and you know you're a little unlucky. Like I had a kid named Dwayne Woodward who played at Boston College where Howard Isley was, and Coach Jim O'Brien said Dwayne was a better all-around player than Howard Isley, except that Howard was a better outside shooter. And Howard's outside shooting got him to the league for 10 years, whereas Dwayne ended up playing overseas for 10 years. He's now the assistant coach at University of Rhode Island. In fact, he just got married last week in Mexico, and I didn't have a passport, so what could I do?
What are your thoughts on the transfer portal and NIL?
I love to see kids make money, but it's destroying college basketball. I actually said this to the athletic director, Ed Cole from St. John's, about a month ago. I said, Ed, Patino's going to have a problem maybe. He goes, look at me, what are you talking about? He goes, LIU or Wagner, they might open up as a job. He goes, what are you talking about? He goes, yeah, and if they do, I'm going to apply. Hopefully I get it. So he goes, how's that going to affect Rick? He goes, it's going to affect him big time. He goes, I'm going to hire Elon Musk as my assistant coach, and everybody that Rick Pitino's giving $1 million to, I'm going to give $5 million to. So they're all going to transfer and play. He laughed. He laughed. He said, but that's
Uh,
come down to now.
yeah, it's true. All right, before we get out of here, what advice would you give your younger self going into coaching, knowing what you know now?
Uh, my younger self, the people who know me know I never did anything for me or money. I never said, hey, I'm going to take a college job because it pays a lot of money, an assistant job. Like Royal Ivy, my former player, MVP at Madison Square Garden, when he won the city championship '99. Played in the league, I think, 10 years or 11 years, and now is coaching. He made more this past year in meal money on the road than I did coaching.
Wow.
And, it would be nice to say, wow, there's a couple of more zeros after doing this. Because you know what? I believe that, I've made a lot of kids better as basketball players, but I've also believed I've helped a lot of kids become stars, not in NBA, and the stars in the game of life. And I've also believed I had a lot of kids do a lot less time in jail or not go to jail or became successes because of the things I did in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s as far as basically adopting them as little brothers or sons and
Mm.
just sometimes even physically having to knock some sense into them. And a lot of these kids, you know, if they came along now, I don't know if I would have the energy or the wherewithal to one of the things that my biggest thing was any kid under my umbrella, I refused to have them become failures. I refused. It was like I was addicted to like making their lives better, going to class. If you didn't go to class, forget about it. I mean, I went to kids' houses. I had one kid who unfortunately spent some time in jail. When I feel I was losing him to the streets and he missed school, his mother actually let me into his house, and I ran up to the second floor. He locked the door, and when I kicked the door open, he jumped out the window and ran. That's a true story. That's a true story. I mean, but like I realized, like if he wanted to be a loser that bad, no matter what I could have done, would never have forced him to be a winner. He unfortunately learned the hard way by sitting in a cell for a couple of years. Realized it's time to change change my life around.
All right. So when you make the Basketball Hall of Fame in
That
Massachusetts, yeah, when that happens, we'll do another podcast. All right.
well, you know what? I that would like holy cow. I mean, if that ever happened, I think I would shake and I mean, wow, wow.
Well deserved. Well
Well,
deserved.
you know what? What can you do? You just try your best.
How many games you have this year? So how many? So you're at
Well,
nine.
we
What you're at? Wait. So you're at 971. You
nine
said.
961.
Okay. So you even if you went undefeated, not this year, right?
No, no,
Okay.
because we have 24 league and non-league. Then we have like the Queensboro Championship, which is like the Big East tournament where you can play a couple of more games, and
Hmm.
then you have the regular city-wide playoffs. Where you could win as many as five. If you win it, you might only get one or two. But I'm hoping somewhere in the 20s, and I'm hoping the high 20s, not for me, for the kids, because I want the kids to hopefully win a Queens championship and experience the thrill of victory.
Ron, thanks for taking the time. Really appreciate you.
Definitely, definitely, anytime.